Millions of people today maintain an outward appearance of success while privately managing a heavy, invisible load of monthly obligations. For decades, the blueprint for the American dream was defined by visible success through outright ownership. If you worked hard, you earned the keys to a house that was eventually yours. During this era, taking out a loan was treated as a temporary bridge. Borrowing was the means to an end, with the expectation that the debt would eventually vanish, leaving the asset entirely in the hands of the owner. That goal of total ownership has quietly shifted. For the modern consumer, the traditional definition of prosperity has been replaced by the task of managing a constant, overlapping stream of payments. We can see the early seeds of this change in the first credit cards. These tools initially promised simple convenience, but they ultimately normalized the habit of carrying a monthly balance. Borrowing stopped being a short-term phase and became a permanent feature of adult life. Financing has moved into every corner of the household, turning debt from a tool of opportunity into a baseline requirement for maintaining a modern existence. Modern borrowing is built on the concept of frictionless spending. By removing natural barriers to a transaction, the system makes spending money feel instant and painless. When you use physical cash, there is a psychological sting to the transaction. A digital swipe bypasses that feeling, neurologically disconnecting the act of getting what you want from the pain of parting with your money. This lack of friction creates a chemical reward system. The instant gratification of the purchase triggers a hit of dopamine, turning overspending into an effortless, repeating habit. Digital culture serves as the catalyst for this loop. Social media constantly surrounds us with images of luxury, creating a persistent psychological pressure to keep up with the success we see on our screens. This pressure encourages a mindset of immediate lifestyle upgrades, urging consumers to borrow for what they want now rather than waiting to save over time. Falling into this cycle is a predictable outcome of navigating an environment specifically engineered for constant consumption. While the psychological pressure is real, most borrowing isn't actually driven by a desire for luxury. The data suggests a much more difficult reality. This chart highlights the primary pressure point. While average real incomes have remained relatively flat for decades, the baseline cost of living has climbed at a much steeper rate, creating a widening gap for the average household. To bridge that gap for basic daily needs, credit has become the primary tool. The rising costs of groceries and housing force an immediate reliance on borrowing just to function. When savings are thin, a single unexpected expense, like a medical emergency, instantly becomes a crisis. Without a safety net, that crisis can only be solved by taking on even more debt. Debt has become the mandatory bridge used to survive the daily disconnect between what Americans earn and what it costs to exist. This grueling cycle is incredibly difficult to break because the modern economy depends on consumer debt to function. Financial institutions have built their entire models around this reliance. They profit significantly more from a consumer who carries a balance for years than from one who pays their bill in full every month. This chart shows the mechanics of that profit. Through minimum payments and compounding interest, the system is designed to prioritize the steady, endless flow of interest over the final settlement of the debt. This extends to national economic growth as well. If people stopped borrowing to spend, the consumer activity that sustains the current system would stall. It's a departure from the historical model, where growth was more closely tied to localized saving and gradual community investment. The debt trap functions as a predictable result of these incentives. It is a system operating according to its core design, where institutional profit is built directly on a foundation of permanent consumer obligation. The human cost is a generation-wide delay in reaching the milestones of adulthood. People postpone homes, families, and retirement, living with constant financial anxiety. It is important to note that debt is not inherently a problem. It provides the capital for businesses to grow and allows students to access specialized training that would otherwise be impossible to afford. The danger arrives when a society relies on borrowing just to maintain an ordinary life. When survival requires taking on financial obligations, the ability to make free economic choices is eroded. Escaping this systemic trap requires a conscious change in behavior. It starts with tracking every dollar and ruthlessly cutting out the emotional, frictional spending that the system is designed to trigger. In the modern economy, debt is a powerful tool that will either strategically build your wealth or quietly destroy it. The only deciding factor is who is in control of the swipe.